One of the things that Cisco set out to do with the UCS was really expand the way in which it could be monitored. Yeah, I mean, think about it. The data center adds to the complexity of IT. It really does, considering there's a bunch of new technologies that are introduced. So Cisco said we need to compensate in that regard. We need to make it more manageable than ever, both with Cisco techniques and following open standards so that third parties can get involved with the Cisco UCS system, developing really awesome products, particularly in the area of management and monitoring this complex system. In this nugget, I'm going to walk you through it all. Lots to do, but most students find this is pretty straightforward information. Let's jump in. So really a lot to look at in this nugget, as I alluded to. I want to start by guiding you through the various management interfaces. Some you're already familiar with, certainly, but we'll just run down the list. We'll take a look at the fault management system built into the UCS, and one of the interesting things here is the fault severities that we have and the fault states and where to find that information. We'll talk about auditing. Just a quick reminder on the finite state machine. You should have mastered this actually in CCNA data center training here at CBT Nuggets, but I couldn't have a logging and monitoring section without talking about it really. We'll talk about logging and its settings, the amazing, remarkable Smart Call Home feature. Still not really sure how many administrators are really taking advantage of this, but we will certainly look at it in depth. This is a tremendous focus in the certification environment, by the way. And finally, we'll wrap it up with everybody's favorite way to monitor traffic in a switched infrastructure. It's the switch port analyzer feature that you're probably familiar with from an iOS-based switch world, but we'll take a quick peek at it here in the UCS. So when you talk about UCS management, everybody, I think, immediately is going to think of the graphical user interface. It's what we're going to be working with and have already worked with in depth in this particular course. But realize there is indeed a CLI for your UCS management. Sure, let me show you some sample code that would represent utilizing that command line interface. So here you can see we have the privilege mode prompt for switch 1. We go into the chassis scope. We enable a particular feature. We look at the configuration that's pending to be applied to this particular device, and then we commit that configuration. So yes, there is a CLI that you can utilize in order to manage the UCS. Certainly not as popular as the GUI, and that's kind of interesting from a Cisco perspective, isn't it? Where we are used to having CLIs be more popular, but I wanted to make it clear to you that it does exist. Now, you also remember that we're dealing with XML files, aren't we, that make up management. So sure enough, there is an XML application programming interface that could be utilized by even third-party vendors in order to make cool management products for the Cisco UCS. We have our keyboard, video, and mouse support, and then there's IPMI, which stands for Intelligent Platform Management Interface. This was an initiated initiative that literally allows management of devices fully out of band. And what we mean by that is literally you'll make a network connection to the hardware and be able to do some management even if the operating system is unavailable that powers that particular hardware. That was one of the concepts behind it. We don't get in depth into IPMI in this course. I want you to be aware that there is support for that intelligent platform management interface. I want you to be aware that it was this Intel initiated project that many network vendors have jumped on and additionally supported, but that's about as far as we go. Now, as we turn our attention to the fault management system of the UCS system, I think you get the idea that Cisco thought this was pretty Important stuff. We just launched the Unified Computing System Manager, and look what appears right before our eyes in the top left. That's right, it's fault summary information. And we've got the more severe to the left and the less severe to the right. Specifically, these messages are summarized as critical, major, minor, and warnings. Okay, so critical, major, minor, and warning as we move from left to right in that particular summary area. Now, you would correctly wonder what the difference is in these severity levels. I like it. Of course we would. Well, the major idea here is as we look at the critical, so when we look at these errors, it is going to affect the system. The system is indeed impacted. When we go over to the far right and we look at a warning message, the system is not impacted by that particular occurrence. Maybe if we let these particular warnings build up and we ignore the particular condition, we will have something critical on our hands that is going to impact the system. So as we move from left to right, as we move from critical faults to warning faults, we are having less and less an impact on the particular system. Now, as you might guess, to go ahead and analyze these important messages, all we have to do from the fault summary window is click on them. This will go ahead and bring us to the faults, events, and audit log area of our UCS manager. And here we can see all 7 of those particular messages. And in this case, of course, those were minor faults. Yeah, this 7 category we see here is the minor fault category as we described. Now, down at the bottom, you can see that there's a key. And this is great as you're just starting to work with the UCS manager. You do have this legend that's going to go ahead and explain to you what you're looking at. Now notice this legend also brings up the various fault states that we can have. There are 4 of those, and let me go ahead and highlight them right here. It's cleared, flapping, soaking, and suppressed. Let me explain these particular 4 possible fault states. The cleared indicates that we have gone in and we have cleared the fault. We've said, look, I understand. I know that's a problem. I don't want to see it again. I'm going to go ahead and clear that particular situation. Makes sense. A flapping, which is the double-headed arrow indication for state, indicates that, yeah, sure enough, the fault is recurring within a certain interval. So you might have a situation where a particular network card, they're notorious for flapping, right? A network interface. It'll go down and then it'll heal itself and then it'll go down again. Then it heals itself. And this flapping condition can be very dangerous and could be something that we want to be alerted to. Now, what about soaking? Soaking indicates that we've gone in and we have acknowledged, we've cleared the error, but we are still within the flapping interval. So it's keeping an eye on this. If it doesn't come back, then that's fine. That's fine. The particular issue will remain in a cleared state. If it does come back, obviously it will report of a flapping state. So pretty interesting. The soaking has to deal with us acknowledging things, but we're within that particular flapping interval. So that's exactly how that works. We can suppress particular fault messages from occurring, and that's what we have with the suppressed. And I love that icon, right? It's like the mute volume icon, and that's a good visual for us to indicate that we are dealing with a suppressed fault state. Now, isn't it funny when a word can have 2 meanings? Here in the United States, when we own our own business and the IRS contacts us and says that we are going to experience an audit, we are in a kind of nightmare situation. We're going to have to go to the Internal Revenue Service and prove, we're going to have a record of all of the activities that took place for us financially as an organization, as a business. Now, that same word, audit or audit trail, is a beautiful thing in the UCS system. Here on the admin tab, if you look down on your faults, events, and audit log, notice there is an audit log. What is this keeping track of? It's keeping track of the particular events that have occurred on your particular system. So here we can see at 10/25 2013, a creation object occurred, a creation event, and a user test was created in the UCS system. As you might guess, we can get additional details about this particular affected object just by clicking on the hyperlink. And that goes for our faults too, by the way. Obviously, we can get more information about these entities through a double click and get more details about that particular fault condition. So it's just so powerful to know that everything that's going on in your UCS system, there is an audit trail for that. Notice we have a filter button so you can help eliminate seeing particular records that you're not concerned with. Something else that's great is you can export this log information. So we click the export button and we choose a location where we're going to save these particular audit information. You can save conveniently in a comma separated value file, a CSV file, and as you know, this can be opened easily in a text editor or spreadsheet application. And now it's time for us to do that review that I promised you of a key concept in this nugget, and that's the finite state machine. Remember, the finite state machine is going to monitor and report to you about highly complex workflows and state transitions. A great example would be backups, right? Remember backups we talked about before? If we are doing a backup configuration or we're doing some type of import configuration, the finite state machine will literally watch that process and be able to report to you the success or any problems with that particular procedure. Now, you find the finite state machine tab wherever it might be applicable. For instance, here we're on local area network tab, and I have the local area network node selected, and sure enough, there's a finite state machine tab. So whatever the particular event was that it's going to be monitoring will be listed here, and the status will be indicated and the number of attempts that were made at that. And of course, you can double click to get more information. Actually, in this case, it's just a single click and you'll get more information below. So remember, the finite state machine is another area where you as an administrator will go in order to get information about key processes and workflows that have occurred. Here I'm looking at the particular UCS chassis itself, and sure enough, there's a finite state machine tab which will give us information about processes, complex processes that have run against that chassis. Now, what about syslogging? We know that Cisco devices like to do system message logging and can dump those to a syslog server on the network. Can the UCS system do that? Well, I would bet that it can because it's a Cisco product. If we go over to the admin tab, notice sure enough, there is the option to syslog. And notice very interestingly, it's disabled this functionality by default. And Cisco says, you know what? In this case, leave it disabled. Yeah, they really do recommend that it be left in a disabled state. That's console logging and monitoring that console. The monitor option means being allowed to see system messages via like secure shell connections. Notice what is enabled, and that is critical UCS manager events okay, to be logged to a file named messages. Okay, so that particular activity is enabled by default. So we do have syslogging capabilities here, and it's no surprise we are dealing with a Cisco product. Now, just in case you thought you might need more information from your UCS system, there's also the system event logs. These reside on non-volatile RAM in your Cisco Integrated Management Controller. So these are on your servers, right? So naturally, to get there, you would go inside a particular chassis and go to a particular server. Let's say server 1. Here we see a tab called SEL for System Event Logs, and we can see the particular system event logs that that server is throwing. Now, if you wanted to see all of the system event logs under a particular chassis, right? So if we wanted to see all the servers event logs of a particular chassis all at once, no problem. We'd go to chassis. Under the system event logs, we would see all of in one place those logs. Keep in mind, we can filter, we can export, we can print, we can clear the logs that we've already recognized. So excellent reporting in this area of the UCS as well. Now, if you're like me, you're going to want to put in an automated policy here that'll back up this logging information and then clear the system event log. This can be done by navigating to your equipment node and then choose the policies area. And right inside here, notice we have a system event log policy tab. And we can complete this particular tab to back it up and then go ahead and clear it. So nice automation here for our system event log maintenance. So now let's focus on an area that your exam will certainly be highlighting. And for this, we're going to discuss the call home feature. Cisco will often refer to this as smart call home because a smart net contract is going to be involved for your organization. This is how you would send alerts to Cisco TAC for resolution. By the way, a SmartNet contract is not required in order to send failure alerts to people in your own organization. But if you want to have your UCS proactively contact TAC at Cisco, well, that's going to require a SmartNet contract. So what you do is, on the admin tab, you go under communication management, and there is your call home feature. Your first step would be to go in and administratively enable the smart call home feature. And you're going to go in and you're going to fill out the contact information, the IDs, the email addresses, the simple mail transfer protocol that this particular feature is to use. Then I want you to be aware of the fact that there is 3 profiles. There is the profile called Cisco TAC 1, and this sends XML information to Cisco TAC. That's what it would be useful for. There's a profile full text. This is full detailed text data, including all alert groups and warning severities by default. And there is a short text profile that you can utilize to send short plain text information. In order to modify any of these profiles, we can go ahead and double click and we can access the General and Events tab of the particular profile in order to tweak the particular event, right? In order to tweak that particular profile settings for the Smart Call Home feature. Now, if you're interested in creating additional conditions that trigger an alert, that's what you would use the Call Home Policies tab for. So on this tab, I'll hit the plus sign on the far right, and I'll create a new Call Home policy for some specific cause in the UCS system. So there is customization that is possible here thanks to Call Home Policies. What about system inventory? Well, if we wanted to send our system inventory to TAC, we could do that. or a particular email destination of our choice, of course. So we would come in, we would turn this feature on and have it done periodically, or we could just initiate the sending of our system inventory whenever we feel it is appropriate. In fact, realize that that particular action right there is a great way for you to test your call home configuration. Now, our last two tabs are for the monitoring of call home. So we can see call home related events. And of course, our finite state machine tab is to monitor complex call home processes that might be in progress. So the call home feature, something that you might take advantage of in production and something you definitely need to be aware of in certification. Now you can see I've moved us over to the LAN tab. And what might we want to do on the local area network tab? We might want to go ahead and monitor traffic that is coursing through the system of our UCS. And you know the way you do this, a switched port analyzer or SPAN. So to do that, we're going to go on the LAN tab and we're going to have this traffic monitoring sessions area down at the bottom. We can choose our particular fabric interconnect, like fabric interconnect A. We can click our plus button and we can create a traffic monitoring session. We can create 16 SPAN sessions per Fabric Connect, but we can only have 2 of those SPAN sessions be active per our Fabric Interconnect. We can monitor up to the virtual NIC or virtual host bus adapter. Just keep in mind a couple of simple restrictions. For instance, on the UCS 6248, we can't have a fiber channel port as our SPAN source port. And our SPAN source and destinations must be on the same Fabric interconnect. Now, a SPAN session can be Ethernet or fiber channel, though. The system defines the session based on our particular SPAN destination port. SPAN destination ports can either be our physical Ethernet ports or our physical fiber channel ports. So the SPAN feature inside of the UCS system, a great way for you to capture traffic for a protocol analyzer destination. We have arrived. What a great job you did in this nugget on logging and monitoring in the Cisco UCS system. Let's test your knowledge right now. You ready? Which of the following is not a valid Cisco call home message format? Would that be HTTP, XML, short text, or long text? Think back to our tour in this nugget of the Smart Call Home feature from Cisco. We had 3 formats that were possible. Yeah, you did it. Great job. It's HTTP, which is not a valid format. We saw short text, long text descriptions. Those would be beneficial for you to send to internal administrators. We saw XML, which was called, by the way, Cisco_TAC, because that's the format that you would utilize when automatically sending information to Cisco's Technical Assistance Center. This is the level of detail that you are expected in the certification exam environment. So please don't be surprised by that, right? I'm getting you ready for the level of detail that you need. Well, I sure hope this nugget has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.